Hey, Longboxers, it's Gabe, and it's time for another interview. So, today we're going to be talking to Morgan David Jones. He plays Jack Frost, right? Right. Let me double check. Yes, he plays Jack Frost on he played Jack Frost on Jupiter's Legacy. So he is one of the little gang members that is in the Wizard Van, which is probably one of our favorite parts of the show. He's also in Spiral, Molly's Game, Supernatural, a bunch of other crazy stuff, and something very exciting that he talks about at the end of the interview. So be sure to watch the whole thing so you can figure out what amazing project he is working on that I am very excited about, because there's really nothing quite as exciting as... Just kidding. You're going to have to watch the interview. Check it out. Hey, Morgan, how are you doing today, man? It's good to have you on the show.
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So, obviously, we want to jump right into it and talk about your work on Mark Millar's, or on the adaptation of Mark Millar's comic book, Jupiter's Legacy, and just kind of ask what the experience was like and just kind of how it was working on a big Netflix project like that.
It was incredible. I'd never worked on a show that big. It's still, I think, the most expensive show that they've ever shot in Toronto. And it was such a great process. I mean, everyone involved, we just had such a great time with everybody. So before we even started shooting our episodes, like the gang that we were part of, like Hutch and Neutrino and Shockwave and I, we all got together personally before we even started shooting to get to know each other, which was great. So we hung out in parks, we went for drinks. It was a really kind of great way to kind of create that bond, because I mean, that's what our group was. We're family friends since we're kids. And then when we're on set, it was literally just like the best time it was just like we were running around pretending to throw invisible ice things at people, pretending to fall down. It was just like you'd play in your bedroom as a kid pretending to be a superhero, and we're getting paid to do it on this grand scale. Like, it was massive, the amount of people that were involved. Everyone was so talented. It was just like a dream come true. It was a blast.
It sounds absolutely incredible. Like I literally can envision what it was like being a kid, like running around playing superhero. And so I imagine, like, with, all of the after effects that were used for the show, you're literally like doing little pew pews and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because you are trying to, we have to completely invest in it. Like, you have to 100% believe what you're doing. But it is kind of hard when there's 200 people standing around looking at you and you're going, whoo, whoo, you're like, don't make the sound effects, because it's just like, as a kid, you're just making it up. But and then it's so cool to see in the final final edit, it looks so cool. So all that hard work paid off for sure.
So as one of the kind of ancillary characters, we're looking at this big world that they've created, and obviously it revolves around the utopian and his family and all of that, but there's so much more to it. Were you able to spend some time with the source material and kind of get to know that world a little better?
Yeah, I definitely read, even before I auditioned. Like, when I knew I had the audition, I got the comics. I got Jupiter's Legacy comics, and I read that before I actually went in and auditioned for it. And then before shooting, I got Jupiter's Circle as well, to kind of patch it all together, to kind of figure it all out. And then, we spent a lot of time looking at the comics and kind of creating our backstory, because our connection to Hutch really isn't the same in the show than it is with the comics. So we all kind of sat down and created what that would look like, how we knew each other, why we knew each other, and what worlds we're kind of connected to, and how far away from the utopian it is. So we kind of did all that backstory for ourselves, and kind of, because we just needed to all be on the same page. There's 4 actors. So that was really fun, because it wasn't just about my story or Jack's story. It was really about the group story and everybody else, and how they intertwine and how long we've known each other. That's also fun. Like, you're getting paid to read comics and create these characters, man. Like, it was not a hard gig, I have to say.
So, were there moments where you're just reveling in it, where you just, you called your friends or something, you'll never guess what I'm doing right now?
Yeah, actually, it's like one of the not the first day filming, but one of the, I guess the second day filming. We did the big truck, the van chase, and that was downtown Toronto, and it was right around the corner from my house. So I had friends and my partner come onto set, and it was such a cool moment because it was like, we started I think at 11 at night to 11 in the morning, so we could shut down the streets. But there's like the first unit team, the second unit team, and then there's all the special effects team as well. So there's hundreds, and then we all had stunt doubles. So there's double of all of us actors, and it was just cranes everywhere. This was just like, this is what, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, a blockbuster Hollywood movie. That's what it felt like.
That's
And
cool.
it felt like we were really part of something, not just of the spectacle of it, but a kind of really cool story. And Christopher Byrne, who directed our episodes, was so fantastic, and he's such an incredible director. So it was just like we got to play and really just let loose. So yeah, that by far was the most, like, I just felt like a little speck, and everything around you, you're like, I'm just a little actor here, and everything else around me matters more. But every little piece of the puzzle kind of fit in.
It's interesting because like it's very important to have like this whole world. Like if you don't see like all of the little aspects of it, I think it really would fall apart. Like,
Yeah.
Without this, these little plots going here and there, and the backstory and like the flashbacks and all of that,
Yeah, there's so many characters. Like,
yeah.
so many characters. Yeah.
When you're approaching like a project like this, you talked about how you spent time with the other actors to like kind of develop as a group. Is that something that you find yourself typically doing beforehand, or did you feel like it was super necessary because you had to create that group dynamic?
I think this was like, this is the only time I've really ever done that, unless I've done like theater or I'm creating work. But this was so, the relationship of this gang is so built on what we all know. And so it was really important for everybody. And that was really led by Ian. I mean, Ian was the only American. Umberly and Jess were also Canadian. Obviously, I'm Australian. We were all in Toronto, and Ian flew up to shoot it. And Ian really led that charge playing Hutch. He was like, I need to know these questions. What do we? And so it really, I think, changed the dynamic of our group on set. Because when we were on, we were like, with the Misfits, we were like so ready to go. And we had this whole history. And I think it really does read. I think once you watch when episode 3 comes on with us, you can tell that we've been together for a while. And I think moving forward, I will always endeavor to do something like that, especially if it like adds to the role. But this one specifically, yeah.
I mean, you guys are so awesome together. Like, honestly, I would love to watch just like a show of you guys. You have a wizard van. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's so
Come
good.
on, let's have that spin-off.
I know. That's my idea. Don't steal it. No, just kidding. No, so, knowing that you're from Australia, and like knowing that like, subcultures and like, different groups of people are different, like all around the world. Like we've talked to people from Canada and Spain and Mexico and all sorts of stuff. Like what was the comic book culture like in Australia when you were a kid, or just like nerd culture in general?
I don't know if I can actually talk to that, because I actually was never into comics as a kid. So it was such a huge thing to be involved in like a really kind of incredible world of comics. I've actually fallen in love with it now as an adult than I have as a kid. The only comics I really read were like in the newspaper, so nothing. But I mean, I'm sure Australia has a massive following. We'd like to hold on, and we're true fans. Even if there's one fan, that would be the biggest fan of the world. So like Australians do it big, if you know what I mean.
I mean, really, my only understanding of Australia comes from Crocodile Dundee. So, like, I like, there's no, like, I mean, that's not entirely true. Like, I've watched TV before, but like, I just assume that it's barren wastelands and Mad Max all over the place.
Exactly. That's where we all grew up, in Mad Max world. I wish that'd be crazy. But I mean, I guess I think with Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine probably also like created a huge following it for Australians, especially to watch like a fellow Australian do so well in that sort of role. But yeah, you should watch more TV, watch more films. Australia's a pretty incredible place.
It is. It also has all the animals that want to eat me. So
yeah, but they won't do it. They'll be fine.
I know. So when you know, obviously you have an Australian accent, like the other
Mhm.
two actors, they had Canadian accents, you know, and you're trying to kind of create like this group of people that seem like homogenous, like they've come from the same place. Like, do you ever, I mean, I guess like in any role, do you ever like find it funny, like the way you have to make yourself sound? Because I know we probably sound really strange, like, because to us, you know, your accent's so weird, blah blah blah. But like
Yeah,
even
yeah.
from the north to the south of the United States, like we
It's
talk
so different
very
for you guys.
different. Like,
Yeah.
do we sound dorky to you? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Do you guys sound dorky? No, I wouldn't say dorky would be the word. What I love, because I always do an American accent for all my other projects. To work
Right.
in an Australian accent, so great. The thing with American accents, it's like there's no question to you guys. You guys know what you want. You say it with like complete, like confirmed affirmation, which is kind of really, well, Australians, we're so laid back, and we kind of like everything's like a question at the end of the sentence, because we're not really kind of like, we're not completely committed. What I admire about Americans is they're so driven and passionate about what they are into and want to know. And so doing a dialect like that, that's what I would create the character with, because they just, you speak with a different kind of cadence. Australians are a little bit more laid back. You just imagine we're on a beach drinking a beer the whole time. So that's like, but even in Jupiter's Legacy, like my accent now isn't really the same as Jack's, like, because I have to like amp it up a little bit, because that's not who I'm. Jack and I are very different, but so you have to kind of add little flavors to the characters to kind of build on. But I love it. I love working with accents. It's fun. It's like, it's extra work, but it also kind of creates a cool kind of distance from myself to the character, but I also can draw from similarities, which I really, really like.
That's awesome. So, kind of speaking about language, like one of my favorite movies that you're in is Molly's Game.
Incredible.
So you had the opportunity to work with, like, I mean, between him and David Fincher, like Aaron Sorkin is like absolutely one of my favorite directors. I have to know, what was that experience like?
It was insane. So like we auditioned, I first auditioned for a very small role, like one line role, and I was like, this role is going to get written out of the script. I was like, this is no way going to keep in the show. And then Aaron that was just a tape, and then Aaron liked my tape so much that he asked me to come back for the bigger role, because they had cut that role. And the callback, he was in the callback, and he was so like giving and warm, and he was so open and just like responded and directed, and he was like, wow, that was incredible. But then I heard that he was saying, wow, that was incredible, to everybody who walked in. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. And then to book it a couple of weeks later was like insane. And my first day on set was the table, that conference room with JC McKenzie next to me, Idris Elba, and Jessica Chastain with Aaron Sorkin. So my first day of this little actor on set with these like four greats was so such a grateful. I was so grateful for that experience. And the way that Aaron is like every single dialogue and punctuation is written there and there for a reason. So you don't actually have to do too much, because you just have to follow the rhythm of the lines, because he'll tell you how to say those lines by the punctuation, by the way it's kind of broken up. And you just need to commit and be like so natural. And it was so easy. As much as my heart was jumping out of my chest and I kind of wanted to run away scared, it was such a wonderful learning experience.
That's incredible. Like, you know, his commitment to like precision and detail. I mean, it's like it's on a different level. And watching like anybody in one of his movies, like I feel like he could take, you know, the smallest role and make it feel like just so incredible and like living in the film.
When nothing is there by accident. So no role is there by accident. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone is actually the center of their own story. And he's the one that has created the story around it. So, and that's really nice, because sometimes you do get some scripts that you're like, oh, like it's so obvious that it was written for like the throwaway character or the throwaway lines. Like it's not really has that attention to detail. But with Aaron, it's like every single character is so thought out that it's wonderful and complex to do that.
That's awesome. So I also want to ask you a little bit about Spiral. So I'm a big fan of the Saw series. And of course, like this isn't, I guess it's not even like a reboot. It's not even like a reimagining or anything. It's like a continuation of the story, but with like a different set of characters. Like, what was kind of some of the reactions that you experienced from people after they watched the movie?
Well, you guys have had it out in the States for a bit, so it's only just come out in Canada. Well, we can't even go to theaters yet. So I think it's online. You can buy it. So I haven't even seen it.
Oh,
But
it's good, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Well, because also like I'm in such a small role of it, but we weren't allowed to know anything else that was going on it. So we only got the parts, our script, we only got our pages. No one was allowed to know anything else. So that in itself is kind of cool, because then it kept the whole mystery, even being a part of it. You're like, well, I really want to know. But all I've heard is, I think I've heard that people are really loving it, that it's kind of gone back to kind of its original kind of roots of fear, with like obviously there's a copycat killer and stuff, but I mean, Darren was one of the original directors, so to bring that kind of back, and I think it would be interesting to see, how did you like how adding Chris Rock to the mix with it? Like, a lot of people thought that might have been a bit of a twist for you, but did it work for you? Because I heard he was fantastic in it.
I absolutely loved him in it, and I love,
Great.
you know, for me, it's a lot like watching Ice-T on SVU. Like, here's this guy that's like so antithetical to like what it means to be like a police officer. I mean, the dude wrote a song called Cop Killer. Now he plays a cop on TV, and like Chris Rock has that same kind of like semi-antagonistic relationship with like authority and the police, and it comes through like so viscerally. I think that he's a really good addition, and then just watching every scene with him and Sam Jackson is like absolutely the best thing ever, because there's just motherfuckers all over the place.
which is great, which you need it, right? Samuel Jackson's insane. Like, he is like a gem. Like, what an incredible man
he is. He's like, again, we're talking about a bunch of my favorites today. So like,
good.
You know, going back to Jupiter's Legacy, when you're looking at this, like, obviously your characters are super, super cool and super like I feel like they're kind of pivotal to the story because of who they're associated with, and like going into like another season, because I assume this is going to get another season because it hit number one.
No, we just got canceled.
No, you did not.
We did, yeah.
For real?
Yeah. We got canceled maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. So we were number one in the world for 14 days straight. And then they announced it and released everyone from their contracts, and it's canceled. So they're still staying in the same world. There's another comic book called Super Crooks that they're greenlighting instead. And I have a feeling, because Mark really loves Ian as Hutch, and our gang we're criminals. We're not villains, but we are criminals. And I have a feeling there could be a possibility that we could swing back, which would be incredible. But you know, Mark wrote to us and all. He said like we did all a fantastic job, but they just creative differences that I think they needed to say goodbye to Jupiter's Legacy and move forward with some other stuff. So I mean, it was devastating. It was like utterly devastating.
I'm shook right now. Like, I'm completely shook, because my next favorite show on Netflix was Sweet Tooth, and that was killer. And if they cancel that, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Like, I'm like 2 episodes to finish Sweet Tooth. I love it. I think it's so good.
We talked to Christian a couple days ago, and he's just as wonderful in real life as he was on the show. So it was awesome.
Good. Oh my god.
So now that I have like destroyed my own heart and and realized that nothing is right in the world, and that I probably spend too much time watching like obscure movies instead of reading news, what are some of the things that you're working on that are coming up in the future?
Have you ever heard a show called Letterkenny?
Oh my god! I love Letterkenny. It is awesome. Like, yeah.
So it's
like, seriously, it's like one of the best TV shows ever.
I think it's like, absolutely. It's so funny. It's so dry. It's so fast paced. And so I have a really good opportunity. I shot it early this year. To have a really fun character in a fun role. That won't come out for another year though, like in the end of May next year. But that and I just finished shooting a Canadian show called Murdoch Mysteries, and set in the early 1900s. But there are other things in the works that I can't really talk about yet. But definitely Letterkenny would be the one that I can talk about now to look out for, because I cannot tell you how fun that shoot was.
I just have to know, did Wayne kick the shit out of you?
No, he did not.
I don't think I've ever seen a television show that manages to be so funny and so kick ass all at the same time.
At the same time, I know. They're such a great creative team, and they walk such a great line. Like, it's always funny, and I hope it has more and more success. I think a lot of people who do love it, it's one of their favorite TV shows. And I mean, Brad Pitt even talked about how it's one of his favorite shows out. And I hope they get even more success internationally, because they deserve it. They're so fantastic.
I know that the instant it hits Hulu on my TV, I watch the whole season every single time. And then go back and rewatch the whole thing again.
I have to watch with subtitles on, so it's just like, because it goes so quickly,
it goes so fast,
and then rewind, watch it again, and then I can laugh even more. Yeah.
So, oh man, sorry, I got to ask one question about Letterkenny.
Okay.
How do you get through scenes without dying?
It's I mean, it's so fun. We have scenes, some of the scenes are like 5 or 6 pages, and it's like 2 lines, 1 line, and we're in a moment, I don't want to say too much, but there's always 4 of us arguing at the same time, and so it was really hard, because it was like insult, like we had to be so fast. But there were definitely a couple of, I think there was one thing that Jared said to me, plays Wayne, he's like, well, that made the blooper reel, because I couldn't get it out, and then I was laughing. So it's but what I like about it is it just is like a group of friends having fun making a TV show. There was no pressure or stress. There was nothing like, oh, if you don't get this, hurry up. It was like, the more fun you had, the funnier your characters were, which is the better for the better TV shows. So we were always encouraged just to play and be silly. And yeah, it's really funny. I'm not going to tell my parents to watch it, because I don't think the language that I say is appropriate. But
I can't imagine why. All I can hear is Shorzy talking about banging everybody's mom right now. So
that is on brand.
Oh man. Well, Morgan, tell our fans how they can find you online and keep track of what you're doing and all of that.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Mr. Morgan David Jones. On Twitter, I'm Mr. Morgan D Jones, and that's about it. That's all I have. So follow, especially Instagram. That's pretty much all I use these days.
Well, Mr. Morgan David Jones, thank you so much for being on our show. We absolutely loved it. It's always a pleasure to talk with people that have been in a ton of things that I like. So
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully there's more to come. So
I can't wait to see you in Letterkenny, because I can't wait to be like, I talked to that guy. He's super funny.
Okay, well, we can talk about it next year.
Yeah, you know what? When the season comes out, I'll make sure Juan hits you up, because I'd love to talk more about it.
Love to. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, you guys, what'd you think? Morgan David Jones, he's a super engaging guy, super funny, and I can't wait to watch him on Letterkenny, because I love that show. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give us a like and a subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on the podcast, be sure to share it with a friend, because I'm sure they want to hear about Jack Frost and Letterkenny too, because if you're listening to this show, your friends are probably jackasses as well. Find us at totlb.com, where you can find all of our socials. Go to patreon.com/totlb, where you can get some cool stuff for your donation. And of course, if you're here on YouTube, give it a like or subscribe. If you're listening to it on the podcast, youtube.com/thinkingoutsidethelongbox. Go there now, subscribe. Juan does this daily thing about Today in Comics that is incredible and shows much more drive and dedication than I've ever shown for anything in my life except for being a parent. Until next time, I'm Gabe. This has been a Thinking Outside the Long Box interview. Bye.
Hey everyone.